So this new world that we're entering into, we're setting the bar higher to a higher standard. And this is even for myself. Recognizing how low the bar was when I first started into this world. And then the journey with the JJ mentality was actually raising standards, raising different expectations, raising everything. And because humanity needs to improve itself, it needs to improve itself exponentially. And there are circumstances and instances that reflect our values around life and how we take care of life and sustain it, and then how we destroy life. And so my journey with my animal, my dog, yesterday I've been posting about Sugar, my dog Sugar, because I received a lot of flack in the beginning of the JJ when I was giving a lot of the JJ to my dog, because I knew she would have to release some major viral entities within her, and she had to reset her body so she could actually maximize all the nutrients in the food supply. And so prior to that, my husband and his best friend at the time both bought me my dog Sugar in 2015 for my birthday. I remember as a kid, when we had an animal, we'd have to walk it at least twice a day for at least 15 minutes. And my mom would check to make sure that my dog Jester at the time peed. And if my dog didn't pee, we'd have to go back outside in the dark. It would be like after dark, because daylight savings was dark after 6. And we would have to walk down the street in the dark at night with my dog. And so I would actually be kind of afraid, and I would carry a pencil with me in case anyone tried to come and get me. I was afraid. And so that was our routine, is when we had a dog, my mom crate trained the dog, and then we kids had to then take care of it, feed it, give it water, walk it twice a day, and it didn't matter rain or shine and all of that. I think at some point when I left home, my mom gave the dog away to, I don't know where. She gave it back. She didn't want to take care of it. She was more of a cat person. She got the dog for us, I guess, to learn responsibility. So we never got to see an animal pass away because we didn't have an animal long enough as far as a dog. My mom had cats, but she had a cat that was 13 years old, passed away or 18 years old. We've had cats, throughout my childhood. My mom's more of a cat person than a dog person. We had one dog her whole life. And then when I was a nanny, I would take care of other people's dogs and other people's children and watch how they did it. Some dogs would just wander away from the yard, and then the neighbor would bring the dog back. And so that was my exposure to how people treated their animals. The dog wouldn't be trained, and it would run away, and then the animal would then be chased after by the owner and then beaten, and then the animal would run away into the backyard and not come out for a while because they're afraid of the male owner. And I didn't agree with that either. I was just like, Jesus, man. But what can I do? I'm just a freaking nanny. I have no say in that household. So, that's why I'm not a nanny anymore, because I can't handle watching people raise their kids and raise their animals if I don't agree with it. So then, fast forward to 2015 from 1996, which was the last time I took care of someone else's animal. 1996, 1998 was when I was a nanny. And so fast forward to 2015, I have my own animal now, finally. And I've always wanted my own animal. I was in relationships where someone couldn't handle having an animal, so that was never in the cards in that relationship. So that relationship died off. So now I'm in a relationship where I can have an animal. And so the powers that be adopted Sugar for me. And so I'm just like, oh my gosh. And so I was thinking back of when I was a kid raising the animal. The dog needed food, the dog needed water, of course, needed to be walked twice a day, needed a lot of exercise. And, and Sugar came from the shelter, the Stark County Humane Society, and she had her one round of rabies shots. I didn't give her another round at the time. And she had operations from tumors that were growing on her belly. So you can see scars. She was spayed. And so then fast forward to then 2016 when I started the JJ's protocol. I started doing that. And then 2017 was when I started administering it to my animal. But I almost gave Sugar back to the Humane Society. Why? Because I couldn't walk her twice a day. For whatever reason, I was afraid of the neighborhood, or I just felt bad that I couldn't uphold what I thought was the right thing. So I almost gave her back because I couldn't, I felt I couldn't meet the standards of what you should when you have an animal. My husband's like, well, even if you don't walk her twice a day, Joanne, she's better off here than she is at the Humane Society. So he actually talked me out of giving Sugar back because I felt I couldn't be the perfect parent according to what I was taught in my childhood. So I got over that. And so, Sugar is my pet now. I finally said, okay, however I deal with her is however I deal with her. If I don't walk her twice a day every day, it's not going to matter. Sometimes I'll go and give her a walk around, the reservoir that we have here at the time. And so anyway, so now it's 2016, 2017. And 2017, I started giving her, well, actually, she started having 2016, 2017, one of her nipples was getting very inflamed and very bulbous and very round and angry looking. And so then at the time I was in the holistic world. So I was applying things to that, trying to get it down, but it would never go down. I tried all these different things, holistic stuff, but nothing ever took. So I'm like, okay. So finally I gave her some J juice, and I put in her food, and I noticed that with some of the foods that I given her, like people food, she would have allergic reactions. She would have these red spots that would be like lines down her neck. She would still have, in the change of seasons, that angry, tumor. I don't know. It was like some kind of thing that now it's gone, but it would kept coming up between the changes of seasons. So between summer and fall, it would be angry and mean looking. And so you could probably see it, and it would be seeping out like pus and all that stuff. And so I would try to figure it out with holistic stuff, but it never went away and it never went down. And so I started giving her the JJ mentality and the JJ protocol. And I put it in her dish, and I mixed it with chicken. I mixed it with all of her favorite foods. She never had waterfalls, but I would notice that things would be coming to surface. I mean, her fur was really, really thin. It was very coarse at the time. She was really big, so she's kind of fat. Maybe some of you have followed me and seen some pictures of the past where she was very big and she was obese and overweight. And then when I started giving her the JJ protocol, then I had the trolls were like, oh my God, so much salt. And they would call the Humane Society on me. They called them one time, and they came out and they looked at Sugar. And at the time she was kind of big at the time. She's like, the only thing that we see wrong with her, because people were telling the Humane Society that I was starving my dog, locking her in the basement, and only feeding her cabbage, water, and salt, fermented. And that I was only feeding her vegetarian or something. So a lot of trolls were really making my life difficult at the time. And so the Humane Society director, he came out with his van and his people, and they looked at Sugar like, okay, she seemed to be okay. And so, okay, so they looked at her, she's the only thing that's wrong with her, she's just obese. They're like, yeah, she looks obese, that's about it. I'm like, okay. So I'm like, okay, that's great. They knew who I was, and I told them what was going on about all the jelly juice stuff. And then and then again, the trolls called again to the Humane Society, maybe a year later. And they were just like, they look at Sugar again. This is after when Sugar got into a fight. Okay. I was actually gone to Washington, D.C. to visit a friend. And my husband was fixing up the front. And there's 2 dogs in the flipping neighborhood that were let out, and they run around in pairs. And this is people from in the back of us. and they found Sugar on on the deck just sunning herself, and they went and attacked Sugar. And so my husband saw it, and he came in, and him and Sugar fought both the dogs off. Sugar only received a bite on the side of her neck where the one dog got her by the back of the neck, but she had another dog on the back of his neck. My husband fought the other dog off, and then they both are gone. Now they're gone now because the policeman shot them because they went after other people. And finally that came to a head. But back then, in I think it was 2018 or 2019, the summer of 2019, I think that's what it was, yeah. The summer of 2019, when she got into a fight, and then I said I healed my dog, because what happened was when she got bit, she got some kind of bacteria, and I was giving her J juice, and I wasn't giving her I wasn't giving her milk, or I wasn't giving her all the food, that I have. I was just giving her kibble with the J juice, and that's with some chicken and cheese and all that, but that's about it. So she went through a bloating stage of that bacteria. She went through a lot but her neck healed up. Finally, she was able to poop, and she was online, because when I was gone, she wasn't pooping correctly. My husband couldn't get her to eat. I mean, she was very lethargic, very depressed when I was gone. And so when I came back, I had to really nurse her back to health, really nurse her back to health. And I did. And I still wasn't giving her people food too much. I gave her chicken, but I wasn't giving her milk. I wasn't giving her yogurt. It probably would have helped her back then, but I didn't know at the time. So anyways, fast forward to today, okay? Before, she used to get into the garbage. She doesn't do that anymore. Before, she used to tear up tennis balls and bite them into little pieces, and they're like the anxiety. She doesn't have that. She doesn't do that anymore. She doesn't bite up tennis. She doesn't even chew on her bones. Before, she used to destroy her bed or destroy a couch because of anxiety. She doesn't do that anymore. I think one time I left her for 2 days when I was in my other house, and I went on a trip, and we left food, we left water. She had the basement to go poop in, and I will never do that again. I did that one time. I'll never do that again, because my husband wanted to go on a trip with me, and we hadn't been on a vacation together, so we took a trip to New York and back to Niagara Falls. I mean, she was fine, but I'm sure she was scared. And so I have a little bit of guilt there that wow, I wasn't a good mommy then. So I'm like, holy shit. And I wasn't thinking about animals as sentient beings. I was thinking about myself. I was being selfish at the time. So I regret that, but she still came out fine. She didn't poop at all during that time. She finally pooped when we came home. She wasn't even eating when we were gone. So I will never leave her alone again. If anything, if I take a vacation with my husband, we're going to go to a pet-friendly hotel and go somewhere nearby, but I would never leave her alone again like that. So I know where I've come up short when it comes to raising a dog. So fast forward to now, my dog doesn't go in the garbage. She doesn't chew up tennis balls. I don't have to go buy her a marrow bone to keep her distracted because I want to write a book, even though I know that she needs to get up every couple hours off the couch and walk around outside. I don't really walk her a lot around this neighborhood because there are free-roaming pit bulls and other dogs and people, and she doesn't really need to be walked per se. I get her nails clipped. She's fine running around outside, okay? And so she doesn't have to, the reason why animals need to be walked a lot because they have a lot of energy and anxiety that it needs to be run off. But what she does is she self-medicates. She runs around the house, and she runs around the yard if she needs to. And I've seen her doing the zoomies a few times. Okay? So anyways, so she's not underweight and she's not overweight. She's just perfect. And so what gets me with an animal, because now that I've raised the bar with owning an animal, I'm up. When she's going through her healing process with her hip dysplasia, I remember in my other house, her back legs were so sore because she was on the J juice and she was going through it. Like she could barely get up the stairs. So I slept downstairs so she wouldn't have to go upstairs. I took her down, different steps so she wouldn't have to go down a large, like I figured out how to accommodate her healing process. Okay? Um, I mean, I try to find every way to figure out how to keep her alive. And I don't leave her out. Like, if I don't want, let me tell you, I'm up at 3 in the morning taking her outside if she wants to go outside. She had, like, I know she had to, like this morning, she had to poop a few times. Or no, she didn't poop. She had to go outside a few times, or she went downstairs a few times. Um, but she never pooped in the house. But she would have to pee, and sometimes she would pee in the house because she couldn't make it to the, or I wasn't up, so that only happened like a couple times. When she has her seizures from upgrading to the new environment from the viruses, yeah, she'll pee in the bed. She'll have a seizure, she'll pee in the bed. I don't get mad. I don't then relegate her to the floor. She is my sidekick. She is like almost like my daughter. She is my family. Okay? My dog is my family. My dog is not a commodity. My dog is not an entertainment piece. My dog is Sugar. She's someone that I value 100%. She is not disposable. I'm not looking at maybe one day she's going to pass away and then I'll be free. No, I will never get another dog again. This is my only dog forever. My dog will be alive for as long as I'm alive. Okay? And so when I look at Facebook and I look at different, neighborhood social media sites, like I belong to Nextdoor, and people are posting how they lost their animal. They can't find their animal. People are posting missing animals that are missing. Kids that are missing, animals that are missing. It's like the parents did not keep very good track of it. Now, sometimes these kids are missing or taken by a parent in a custody dispute. I'm talking about kids that are kidnapped. I'm telling you, back in the 80s, and I could have been kidnapped many times because we were walking to the grocery store and back to get milk. We were walking, we were out there playing at the playground, maybe 10 blocks away at a school that was closed. They had basketball courts. I could have been kidnapped many times back in the 80s. Nowadays, you couldn't leave your kid anywhere. You have to, your kids have to learn autonomy on some level, but I'm telling you, you have to really watch not only your kids, but you have to watch your animals. So it gets me that people will post pictures of their animals and say, if you find my baby boxer that is 6 months old and I let him out around 5 p.m. or 5 a.m. this morning and I haven't seen him since, I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? I hear people chain their animals outside and you hear them barking outside. It's cold or it's hot. The animal's miserable being sitting on. Sometimes, I understand people have winter animals and they want to be outside. I get that. If they're not suffering, that's fine. If the animal's barking, the animal is chained up outside. You have to chain your animal up. What the F? So yeah, I've been very, very boisterous the last couple of days about people commodifying their animal and making them disposable, not realizing that the animal is a sentient being. It is feeling, it's perceiving. No, they can't talk. No, they can't defend themselves with language to let you know what they need. So you have to be like an investigator and figure out and know your animal well enough. People change animals. They buy them as puppies. They grow up and they're not trained correctly, or the animal has anxiety, or the animal is not fit for the household. And then people give their animal away. And I'm just like, how does that animal, you see the stuff on Facebook with the different shelters. Mine talks, at least she tries. That's great, Maggie. But yeah, you see in the shelter where the poor animal was given away because they were older. And you could see the sadness. You could see the scared. My dog, I heard from my husband that she was scared at the shelter when she was there. They were like, he said that, because I'd never been inside there because I didn't adopt Sugar. Someone else adopted him for me. But he said there were rows and rows of cages, and one animal, some animals are so aggressive. And Sugar was in a shelter where there were so many aggressive dogs, docile dogs. Good morning. And I'm like, imagine what it's like when you give an animal away because you because you never planned your life out correctly and understood what it takes to be committed to an animal. And so, so anyway, so I've been just like on the rails about people, just not taking care of their animals. Now I understand nowadays because people don't understand the JJ mentality, and it does take a lot of work to really be committed to keeping your animal alive. I understand, sometimes animals die now because people don't want to take the time. I mean, my dog is on my bed every day. Okay, my dog is on the bed. I don't put her in a pen. I don't put her on the floor. I am so aware of her every moment. When she has the seizures, I could feel them for the most part. I know when, and I'm in the middle of the night when she pees the bed, I know when she does it, and I let her do what she has to do to get through. Okay? So I know exactly what goes on with my animal 24/7. But I've also set up my life that way. Now before I went to work outside the home, and she was home for 8 hours a day by herself. I know that was probably anxiety for her, but what else were we going to do? I mean, my husband was working, I was working. Now that we figured out we don't, we can live on a one income household, I can devote my time to my animal and time to the house, time to the book that I'm writing, so people understand what it really takes to take care of an animal. Okay? It's 24/7 care. I'm up at 3 in the morning and I'm up at 3 in the afternoon. And I'm in the, okay, so Mag goes, I'm in the few pet groups and I see many posts about dogs getting a hold of their medications. And I'm always like, yeah. Here, there's stuff on the floor. Sometimes I drop something. My dog doesn't go after things. She doesn't eat everything in sight. She's a self-feeder. See, the difference between some dogs and other dogs is intelligence. There are some dogs that are not very intelligent. They're highly hormonal and they are starving. And so when dogs are starving and highly hormonal, like hormonally imbalanced, they will eat anything in sight. They will eat themselves to death. They will eat a whole bag of dog food if given the chance, because they don't know boundaries and they're hormonally imbalanced. And so when I gave my dog the Jilly Chips protocol, and then finally within the last since this COVID, I've been giving her all food in the food supply that's appropriate for animals, because she has she has viruses, excuse me, parasites, protozoa, proteins, fungus, and bacteria. And she needs fatty acids, amino acids, prohormones, and minerals. Dogs are not that different than humans. No, you don't give your dog like brittle chicken bones, unless some guy in my business page was saying that he was grinding up the chicken bones. Okay, fine, that's great. But I don't go and just throw a chicken bone with chicken and say, hey, here you go, sugar. I don't just throw her a steak, a T-bone, whether it's raw or otherwise. I make sure that the food that she gets, she can digest. It's not going to get lodged in her throat or splinter in her belly. And she needs all fatty acids. She needs meat, milk, cheese, eggs, fruits, and vegetables. Okay? And so those that are like, oh, you're giving your dog a hamburger or hot dogs, that's junk food. Oh my God, high sodium. The reason why your animal has cancer, disease, and chronic illness and dies from old age is from starvation, low sodium diets. The owner doesn't want to deal with what it takes to deal with evolution. It's a lot of responsibility to keep an animal alive. It's a lot of responsibility to keep a human alive. Why we turn to death in people and animals? Because it's the easiest. And so the scientists have figured out lifespans in different environments. Though before the COVID-19, the lifespans would have been longer because it wasn't as dynamic. Now with the COVID-19 and all the different variants thereafter, lifespans are going to be cut short. So what we think in a dog's lifespan, the average of like 10 to 13 and maybe 20 years, is actually going to be cut short, potentially even 5 years. I know people that got puppies, that the puppy was when this new virus came through, the puppy was diagnosed with some kind of kidney infection that the owner did not want to deal with. And so instead of figuring out, which they would never know how to figure out, I don't know how the vet would deal with a kidney infection, I don't know how a vet would do any of these things. They could, but it would be for like thousands and thousands of dollars more than the owner is willing to pay for. The owner is paying for a dog that's relatively healthy in a cured state and won't have too many issues. But when a dog has a lot of issues, they're at a deficit. When a dog has a lot of issues, they're at a deficit, and then the owner has to figure out how much they're willing to fork over to keep that dog in a cured state and until the dog passes away, because the owner doesn't know any better to actually feed it and maximize the nutrition in the food supply. And so now lifespans in animals and in children and in humans and adults are going to be cut short because people are still going to do the same thing they've been doing prior to the COVID, but the environment is that much more dynamic. And so, yeah, lifespans are going to be exponentially shorter. And so what I figured out how to prolong a lifespan is you have to deal with these viruses. You cannot try to cure yourself from the virus. You cannot try to do anything that resists the environment, because you will cut your animal's life short. You'll cut your own life short. And that means that you're going to have to deal with what it takes to actually keep yourself alive and your animal alive. So how you take care of your animal and how you look at your animal, your pet, is exactly how you look at yourself and how you look at your children and you look at your loved ones. And if you think that your animal's supposed to die someday, then you have a disposable mentality. If you think yourself is supposed to die someday, you think of yourself as a disposable commodity, and you are a commodity. You have a social security number. That social security number tells the government how much you could potentially make, and life insurance gives you an actual cash value of what you're worth if you were to die today. So if you don't think you're commodified, you're heavily commodified. And when you think you're commodified and you know you're commodified, then you're a commodifier animal. The animal's only there to entertain you and keep you happy until it can't, because it's either evolving or such at a deficit that you don't want to dealing with having to keep that animal alive. And so people destroy not only themselves at the micro level, taking vectors to antibiotics, but they also destroy their animals at the micro level and macro level. And so, yeah, I'm going to be pissy because I'm on the side of life. I'm not disposable. My dog ain't disposable. My husband isn't disposable. My dog has intellect. Okay? She is like a sentient being, just like the narco hippos that are supposedly now their own individual. Okay? And at some point, we're going to have lab-grown meat, and I'm fine with it. If it has all the fatty acid, amino acid, prohormones, and minerals, if we have lab-grown food supply, I am fine with it all. I don't love that an animal has to die in order to feed me, but it's the way of the world right now. Okay? I don't have to see it, but I have to feed myself to keep myself alive, to keep the animals alive. If humans aren't around, well, animals would take over, and it would be that balance of the predator versus prey, and the environment would keep that balance too, keeping vegetation around to keep the herbivores alive, so that way the carnivores can eat the herbivores, and then the omnivores are like, ooh, we got both sides of the world here. So if humans weren't around, the animals would flourish. But humans must live symbiotically with the animals. But humans have to hold themselves to a higher standard, and they're not. And so right now, the whole JJ mentality is raising the freaking bar. And some people don't want to have that bar raised. They want to not only destroy themselves, but they want to destroy everything around them. And that's why this virus is coming in. So even if you get a vector, it's not going to matter, because you're not going to change your lifestyle, and you're still going to go out there and hang out. And the thermodynamics of so many viral transducers triggering your immune system to create mRNA antibodies against COVID-19 is going to take up resources that you already don't have. So I don't care how you think you're protected by a vector. It's not protecting you, because you haven't figured out how to raise the bar in your own life. You think life is disposable. And so if you think life is disposable, you will find a way to resist the environment, because life is about adapting. Indefinite life is about adapting indefinitely. That you're not going to just not keep yourself. I mean, let me tell you, when you go through the JJ protocol mentality, and you use salt in the J juice and eat the food in the food supply, you're going to bring up all these different predispositions that you've put at bay. You're never going to want to revisit that ever again down the road. You might see a few things, but my back feels better. I still blow my nose. I still poop and pee. I still sweat when I'm around viral transducers. I told my husband, you know, if you decide to go to a fair and he's built like a brick shit house, so he can handle the heat, it'll cut his life short, yes, but he can handle the heat. I can handle the heat too. He might smell like onions after we go to some place. I may have to be tired for, like, you know, when my book is done, I might be doing some stuff. But I know what to expect. I will be feeling the heat from all the people. I don't want to take a vector if I don't need to. If it's required to get in, then, you know, I'll do it. But then I'll just use salt to quiet the programming, and my own immune system will overwhelm the secondary programming. Because I have a very strong primary immune system that will not allow a secondary system to stop my evolution. And so if that ever happens, salt is the neutralizing force. So those that are afraid to get vectors or therapeutics and you want to evolve, salt is it. Salt is your baby. Too much of the J juice over a long period of time will turn you into the crypt keeper, and it will put you in a cured state. But remember, you will not survive a cured state. My dog, until she has a little bubble on the back of her head, but I know that that's there for a reason, because she's still releasing a lot of the scar tissue from her surgeries, from being spayed. She had a microchip put in her, which I have no idea if it's there or not still. And she will have to evolve to the levels of the environment. Okay? And some of these viruses are stronger than others. So I remember a couple of days ago, she had 2 seizures in one day. And I fed her all the food that's appropriate for her, the meat, the milk, the cheese, the eggs, fruits and vegetables. And so it replenished the resources that were used up during that evolutionary process. See, when people have these different symptoms and they're afraid to eat because they think the food caused their symptoms, yeah, it's called cell regeneration. And then people go on these diets. They stay away from meat, milk, cheese, eggs until there's nothing left except for beans and twigs and berries, and that's it. And then they're emaciated. They weigh next to nothing. And so you've seen that, where someone weighs next to nothing. They will have a hard time dealing with a new viral transducer that it's so strong that the shock waves from that viral transducer will stun their heart into stop beating. That's what will happen with those that are extremely underweight, and those that are way overweight with weak vital organs won't survive either, because the vital organs are what your body needs to survive. And if you have weak vital organs, not able to handle shock waves of new viral transducers, guess what? People pass away from heart attacks and strokes because they couldn't handle the energy. And so my dog will have to deal with whatever until her body is now upgraded to the level of the environment. And I'm prepared to deal with that. I've taken this on. That's my commitment to her. Oh yeah, it's not always fun being up at 3 a.m. when I'm in the middle of my sleep and I hear her getting off the bed. And I'm like, does she need to pee? Does she need to poo? What's the deal? I told my husband, we need to get a doggy door and then cordon off the deck. So if she has to go to the restroom, we can all have some sleep. But since I don't work the way he works, I'm the one that gets up. So I'm fine with that. Some days are harder than others. Other days are easier. But it's my commitment to my dog. And so some of you have an easier situation because you might have a dog door. So the dog can go out when it needs to. And you're not having to get up and take it out every night and every morning. But that's not how our household is constructed. And so it's forced me to really be committed to my own development with the JJ protocol, and to keep my animal alive, and to keep my husband relatively sane during all the changes that he's going through. So, but I want to let you know that if you treat your animal like a commodity, you treat yourself like a commodity, that you're not a sentient being, you're just a disposable bot, you value life very little. And the whole JJ mentality is to value life, not only for yourself, but also for your kids, for your animals, and your husband and your wives, and anyone that takes cues from you. And so I can tell when those who they're just here temporarily, because guess what? Their animals are here temporarily, and they will not care about their animal or themselves. So, all right, that's it. Bye.